Hey, how's it going? It's your boy. And damn it,
Yeah, right. All right.
damn it, whatever, whatever. We're gonna bleep that out. Bleep that out too. It's Anime Parlay. We are talking about chapter 1143. We're a little bit late. I don't care. You don't care if you're watching this clearly. We might spoil a little bit of 1144 because that also dropped, but we're gonna do that later. But for now, it's your boy Killer Cam. Everything else has been bleeped out. There were no mistakes, but I just bleeped it out anyways. Um, I'll pass it off to whoever wants to go next. Please go ahead, introduce
Peace and
yourself.
blessings, y'all. It's Mr. Wild and Free.
Yo, it's Mugiwara Mike, ready to talk today.
Let's catch him. Let's get it.
Okay, let's talk. All right, so just to recap, chapter 1143. I got to be honest, not super interesting. I mean, stuff happens, but obviously we'll get into it. Just as a brief recap, so we start off with Saul. He is walking down the children, like the giant children that are, have been put asleep and covered in some kind of thing that is hurting people. And we'll get into that in a second. The monsters that are nightmare monsters, effectively, are terrorizing the village. And we're trying to figure out how to stop it. Saul tries, for whatever reason, and even after being directly warned not to do this, tries to touch one of the children and is stabbed something fierce with a whole bunch of thorns that I think he can see. It's kind of not implied, like other people can't see it because there's a question of like, did something stab you? So it's kind of questionable if he can see it. I assume probably not, since the way that it's drawn, it looks like it's invisible, but who knows? But anyways, so we get to the party that's going on still. So all these parents are just terrible parents, are not paying attention to their kids at all. They're just getting drunk, and they basically get from a transponder pill bug. So I guess that's like the giant version of like the Dead Mushi that basically there's issues with the children, that the eighth branch is on fire, etc. So they set off to basically send like this fire brigade of giants that are heading towards to put out the fire. Then they get slapped down by basically this like undead skeleton warrior nightmare creature. And that's another thing.
Draugr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Norse names that like I really do wish like Odin had called them something else, just because like I don't want to have to look that up. It's like, oh, what's a Draugr in Norse mythology? Like I haven't played God of War in a while.
I find
But
it
anyway,
cool.
so that
Shout out.
happens.
Shout out.
We'll get into it. So, anyways, that happens. Then we cut to Summers, or Saint Summers. He's eating food and laughing about basically being a prick, literally. Basically, he reveals that he has it is revealed in a note box that he has the thorn fruit, right? That he's a briar man. And I got to be honest, and we'll also get into this. I think it's kind of lame. I know some of you guys disagree with me, um, but I'm just very unimpressed by it. But we'll get into it. But anyway,
Fair.
so we also get a revelation of what Killingham's powers are, which effectively, I mean, he's kind of a PDF file, and I'll also get into that as well.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm going there just
PDF
because.
file.
Whoa.
Okay, so the way that it's demonstrated, he can basically say, okay, like, hey, like, isn't salt good? And then the person thinks of salt, and then it looks like he shoots like a noro kind of beam that immediately puts them to sleep, and it allows him to manifest what they're thinking of and pull it into reality. But he's able to put people to sleep, which is odd. But we'll get into that anyways. So we understand what his powers are. He is a mythical dragon fruit, which, by the way, that is the first time we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to put like a little asterisk on that because technically Kaido's fruit is a fish fruit
Yeah.
model, whatever, right? Which, I mean, we'll get into that as well. But this is the first time we're actually seeing a mythical dragon fruit. As far as we know, this hasn't actually existed until seeing Killing Him.
I think
So,
that's
anyways,
why he like shows up as a dragon. All right, continue. Sorry.
yeah, no, all good, all good. We'll get into it. Okay, so anyways, the nightmare creature is still running amok. We kind of get these shots of Gunko like having a little bit of like a surprising or quirky or fun personality, which to be honest is like kind of lending itself to maybe she will be reformed in some way. She's not all bad. She seems to be getting a lot of attention. So we'll see what happens with that. It doesn't seem like she's like completely, totally evil. She does seem separate and distinct from the group. But anyway, so the plan is they're going to march them down basically in a straight line to the end of this branch that just goes straight to the harbor. And, St. Summers is laughing about it. He's like, oh, man, like, they're going to love them and it's going to be so hard for them. And then they're going to touch them and they're going to get hurt and like, whatever, like their love is going to cause them pain. We then cut back to Loki, who is basically just kind of like crashing out, and he's got his Ragnar in his hands. He just hit the tree, sparked some, lightning and thunder, and he's basically just like, okay, like, what are you gonna do now? Like, let me go, or I'm about to do it again. And then he basically kind of like threatens, and Luffy's about to like kind of go ham on him, and then he just immediately collapses. Then we get the reveal, and by the way, like Luffy like barely touches him, and then he just completely collapses. And then Zoro lets us know he was on the verge of like passing out anyways. So Luffy asked, yeah, but the way that it looks looks like it was just like a dink, like he barely even touches him.
Yeah.
And then basically he passes out. Hardin's like, this guy sucks. He's my brother. We get a little bit of a brief flashback, but before that, Luffy asks Hardin, please save his life. Like, I don't care what kind. I mean, literally after all that just happened, he's just like, dude, help this. So clearly Luffy he's just a slave to Chads. Like, he thinks that Loki's a Chad and he wants to just be like a captain, saving him.
No, he just wants that information on Shades, boy.
I mean, maybe he hasn't said that, but I think he just really is just infatuated with Loki. He just really cares about him and wants to be with him. But
what a way to put
anyway,
that.
so Gerd then is healing. So I guess Hardin says yes. Gerd is healing Loki, but I guess not very well because it's going to take several months. But I mean, that's the thing in this in the One Piece world. It's like most injuries they just slap on some bandages. They'll like blow up, and then they just slap on some bandages, and then like 2 hours later they're fine. But for whatever reason, Loki's going to take months. And then basically we get a little bit of a flashback with Hardin. We get the reveal that obviously Loki is an ancient giant because he's got these like huge horns coming out of his like skull. It almost looks like they're coming out of his eyes. It's kind of weird looking, but we get this kind of flashback with Hardin, basically Loki being a prick, really like truly just being like a bad guy. And then it looks like Hardin is about to like cut his head off because he's like holding an axe in his hand and standing right above his head.
He really wanted
to. The way that
I got my
he looks, and then he like literally he's like about to bring it down, and then somebody grabs him. So I mean, like that was going to be pretty hardcore. I'm not gonna lie if that had happened, but they stop him, and then Loki basically says like, "You really think that like I killed Dad? Like, are you really like buying that? Are you stupid? You know what I mean?" And then we get the end of the chapter. So that is our recap. Thoughts?
I'm pretty into the chapter. I liked this chapter. I liked the reveal of everybody's devil fruits. As far as the thorn fruit and the dragon mythical fruit, it showed a lot. Brought the game back together of what they're playing and how it's being played, and gives me a lot of theory on what's going on with these two fruits.
Sure, yeah. Anybody else?
I thought it was a great chapter. I think that there were some fascinating things that revealed a bit more about like the way Elbaf works. One thing that I found like peculiar was like the pill bug transponder snail. Well, transponder pill bug, which was not a snail that only works on Elbaf. I thought that was kind of interesting because it made a very clear distinction in the way that communication is handled there. And so I'm wondering if that specific device being only accessible on Elbaf is one of the reasons why communication is different between Elbaf and anywhere else in the world, right? Like, I'm curious to know if that is a part of what plays into that. But ultimately, I think that I saw this coming from a mile away. Y'all could hear it from, previous talks that we've had, but I was just like, I don't think Loki is a bad guy. I think what he was doing was, intentional to try and help save the kids. Even in this chapter, when he was putting up his last attempt at that bluff, he's just like, yo, like, y'all gonna have to get out my way if you want to save these children, right? Like he even centered it back around them. And so, I'm glad to see it kind of unfold in this way. Harden, I'm not gonna say I was surprised at his reaction, but it's more so of like I'm glad we got to see a little bit of that backstory and the gray area and how he feels about this current situation. But I'm also glad that it seems that he had the hesitance within himself, right, to not just go ahead and do it immediately. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this chapter.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off, I mean, you did kind of
You mean
predict
Mr.
that
While
Loki
Robin
wasn't
fruit?
a villain.
That's what you meant,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Who's
my fault, Mr. Rutherford. Yeah,
yeah, no
bleep that
worries.
out.
We'll bleep that out. Sorry, guys.
Um, but yeah, I mean, now, I mean, you could circle back to this and say Oda's gearing this thing up to make it look like um, Loki's going to be the hero and
Hmm.
help the Straw Hats, help the Giants of Elbaf fight against the Holy Knights,
Yeah,
and kind of the hero since he was played out to be as the villain who killed his dad and destroyed Elbaf and all this, and now he's kind of his hero story that's
yeah,
about to play out possibly. So I think that's pretty dope. Um,
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Like, the more I see of Harden, the less I am impressed of Harden. You know what I mean?
hmm.
He's just not a very impressive guy. It's like,
That's
I don't know. I mean, he's not that
what you got against
strong.
Haruden, man?
He
yeah.
doesn't have like his character design is also kind of not that interesting. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I feel like this whole thing of the kind of humanizing story with him and Loki, it kind of rests on how much we feel connected to Harden and how much we like Harden. Because ultimately, we're supposed to like really be to some degree in his corner and feel for him in the sense of, this character that we're introduced to, like, has terrorized you. He is unsympathetic, right? Like, we're supposed to kind of like feel both sides of that, right? Obviously, we get introduced to Loki and he's like super cool and very honorable in a lot of ways, but we're supposed to feel for Harden. Like, that was the whole point of that flashback, that like he was, a half-blooded, unpure, for lack of a better word, bastard. Um, like, seriously, right? And like, he's the I want to say he's the older brother as well. Loki's the younger brother.
Mm.
Um, so he's supposed to be this kind of like, to be honest, like sympathetic, like underdog kind of figure, but it's hard not to like really be rooting for Loki every single second because Harden is just not that interesting. I mean, it just is what it
I
is.
mean, I don't know. I think that
Is anybody on Harden's side like at all? I mean, we
I
know that Loki's going to be
I
like
am,
revealed to
but
be like,
like
okay, he's
it's
like,
not like a
you know what I mean?
I don't- I'm picking sides, but I'm not picking sides because I don't think that this is a pick a side kind of situation. Like I think that this is a
We're supposed to feel for
reconciliation.
Harden.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
reconciliation
yeah,
more than
but
anything else, and I think that we
mm,
can feel for the mutual coming together of two brothers more than anything else, right? Like it's like yeah, if you want to pick a side, sure, but I think it's more so of
mm,
like, okay, here is um a hard won battle of, personal dramas between two brothers who have gone their separate ways for an extended period of time. And here we get that initial discomfort, right, of confronting everything that has caused us to drift apart, and now we have an opportunity to really bring all the cards to the table and hear what's going on, right? And I think that there's a lot of discomforts that were risen in that, right? Like we do see Loki being a bit of a bully when he was younger, talking about his dirty blood, like Harden's dirty blood and that kind of thing. So I think that in a
hmm
way, it's like yeah, okay, they've both had some you know one side or another to how this dynamic plays out, right? And on Loki's side, Harden feeling like, oh, he killed their father, so there's ill content on both sides and how they're feeling about one another, and we're getting to witness the reconciliation. And I think that
yeah, but
it's
I guess my
fair
thing is
to.
that
Mhm.
it's not even though, right? Like the way that it's portrayed, right? Like so far, and we'll see if like Loki's been the actually good brother who's doing these things for a good purpose because he's trying to protect Hard in some way, whatever. I mean, I feel like it's a little cliche, but sometimes Oda does that. But I think that the way that Loki is being portrayed, and maybe there's going to be a reveal, I'm sure that there will be, but it's kind of like unequivocal, right? That he has been a terrorizing force to his brother,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
I mean, specifically, we see the flashbacks where he's just saying things, and maybe there's a reason behind it, but like
Maybe not. He was
he's not he's not meant to be sympathetic in that way, right?
Mhm.
Haruden, as far as we know, the way that he's been introduced, he is a sympathetic character. He has a dream. It's stated specifically in the
Mhm.
beginning of this arc when we meet him that he wants to be, this
King of
great
Elbaf, basically.
leader of the Elbaf Pirates,
Mm.
right? He wants to kind of bring back in that golden age of
I don't
basically
even think
giants.
it's the Elbaf, but I think it's King of the
King of the
Giants.
Giants, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the king of the giants, but like, obviously he's a part of like a pirate crew right now for
Mhm.
whatever reason. He's obviously part of the Grand Fleet as well. But Loki, or sorry, not Loki, Harden, for lack of a better word, wants to make giants great again. I just had to put that out. But
He didn't have to do that.
he does, though. He actually does. And to be honest, it's a pretty good slogan. You can kind of use it for anything. But
I plead the fifth.
anyways, the point that I'm trying to, not to make it political, but like the point that I'm trying to make is like Harden is supposed to be to some degree. And I get your point. There is like a conflict between these two brothers, and we're trying to get to the stage of catharsis, of reconciliation. That's obviously what we're being set up for. However, I think that maybe there's a little bit. We need to feel closer and more connected to Harden. We need to see Harden's perspective a little bit more, and we're kind of getting that with the flashbacks. But like, I mean, I don't think Dressrosa was enough to like connect the readers to Harden and Harden's story. He's just kind of there. We are familiar with him, but we don't really know much about him. I mean, just to be honest, right? We don't know a lot about him. We're kind of getting that now. Like he wants to be king of of Elbaf, but
Yeah.
it seems like with Loki, and maybe it's just like the Chad edgelord cool factor or whatever. Like Oda seems to be like, I guarantee if you did like a popularity poll between like Loki, well, just right now,
Yes.
Loki would be like top 5 probably, and Harden would be like top 50
For sure.
I mean? He'd be
Loki's
But I
new.
think that is
way low.
intentional.
Love,
I think
man.
that's intentional. Like
Character.
I mean, I think it's character design, and I think it's Oda is making him like kind of like a Zorro figure. He's like cool, he's stoic, he's all these like things, but we're not getting enough of Harden
well,
yet.
what I'm reading from it is we
Hmm.
are getting exactly as much of Harden as we're supposed to, in the sense that in the grand scheme of how these things play out, Loki will have a more significant relationship with the Straw Hats than Harden does, even as one of the captains of the Grand Fleet or whatever he is, right?
I agree with
And
that.
so I
Do
think
you think so?
I do. I think so. Like in the way that it's playing
Isn't
out.
that kind of like a slap in the face to Harden, though?
I mean,
I think
it's-
Luffy's probably just gonna respect him more though, and
Yeah.
like do more alongside of him than like him
'Cause
like
Harden's
going
kinda
side to
getting-
side with Harden.
Yeah, it's not to say like, so let me put it this way, right? Like I would say it's like Luffy's relationship with Shanks in a way, right? Not saying like it's the same thing, right? But like look at how like
Sure.
they've had how many exact interactions, right? And then they've been apart for basically the entire thing. And there's a mutual respect, and there is like a sentiment associated with the relationship between those two, right? Same thing with like when I think of Harden, I think of like King Nefeltari or like Iceberg, right, from Water 7 or something like that. Or you know, it's a level of like mutual respect and association, or even like Rayleigh, for instance, right? Like there was a period of time where Rayleigh was significant and played a key role in Luffy's journey, but now they're kind of apart. But that mutual respect kind of remains, right? And I think that the way that it's being set up is that Harden plays a part in this Grand Fleet, yes, but he has his own goals to attain as well, right? This Sonder aspect, he is his own main character in his story, and so for him to become King of the Giants, right? I think that shows he will have more of a diplomatic relationship and importance in the Grand Fleet with Straw Hat more so than a direct relation that Loki might have, you know? And that's what I'm reading from it thus far.
Mm.
Like the way that the story is unfolding and this infatuation that you speak of that Luffy has with Loki. I really do think that, you know, there are some ties between the Straw Hats and Loki that are unfolding that I think are going to bring him closer to the crew than what we will get from Haruden.
Mm. I mean, I could see that. What about the rest of you guys?
I think it's implied that that Loki's stronger than Howard is as far as
That
like
too.
skills and things he can do and power level. So I mean, I guess getting it as is what's
You
where
mean
Mr.
Mr. Wild and
is
Free,
getting
right?
it is that Loki's gonna have more of like a mentor relationship with Luffy
Hmm.
versus like a friendly relationship.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, also age is a consideration. I don't know
Mhm.
if Loki's a part of the age of like, I mean, I guess technically Shanks in his prime, possibly, right? We don't even know what Loki's particular backstory, whether he was a Yonko or not. I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Wait,
I
what?
mean,
I thought that was
Mugiwara,
okay.
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts?
Steven,
Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
didn't hear that. I didn't hear that part.
Hi.
I think that he's like Haruden's going to be a part of the Grand Fleet. He's a friend of Luffy's, but I think Loki's not going to be a part of the Grand Fleet or anything. They're just going to have like one of these crazy arcs together, and they're going to separate with some crazy respect for each other,
Mm.
and like maybe even like slight rivalry. Like if they see each other in public later, they're going to like go at it on site, you know, and like
Hmm.
clash. And then like after, it's going to be like a Whitebeard Roger type situation rather than like
Oh,
Roger Scopper Caban type situation. Like they're going to be out there in the world as equals, hitting it and then partying.
I like
And
that.
Hmm.
yeah.
I like
Okay,
that.
I mean that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would.
All right, let's transition. We're
Before we
gonna
transition, I do want to
yeah,
say one thing. Really, it's going to be super quick.
sure, yeah, go
I
ahead.
thought something that was like really interesting about these chapters was something that we'd all been like really anticipating about Loki's bandages over his eyes,
Mm.
Yeah,
and we were anticipating this was something that came from the devil fruit he may have or something. But this chapter showed him in the flashback with Haruden
Hmm.
with the bandages over his eyes as a kid,
Yeah.
which I thought
Yeah,
was like very interesting. I'm like, why the hell has he had bandages over his eyes his entire life?
that is super
You know,
interesting
like what
too.
he
is
might
the
be
deal
You
there?
blind.
bring it up.
He could be blind.
Mhm.
Yeah,
He could have like weird eyes that would like that his dad Harold
Mhm.
would have been like, you need to like cover your eyes, otherwise you're
Yeah,
going to get kicked out of the
Yeah,
village.
for sure.
could be
Straight
like
up
a
yeah,
Cyclops
Loki,
type of thing, like where he has
yeah,
laser eyes. That would be sick.
yeah.
straight up
Maybe
Loki type backstory where he has some kind of like defect that makes him feel like he's not doesn't belong or something like that.
hmm,
I just
Mhm.
thought that specifically was very interesting and something to look forward to
Yeah.
because I don't they always say like if you show a gun in a movie, like eventually that gun has to be used. Like
yeah.
we're looking at this guy's eyes like this, like eventually
Mm.
they're gonna reveal that to us.
Could be
Mhm.
very
Yeah,
And
interesting for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Another thing that I saw real quick at the end, he's like, take a look at the forest around us, or like basically where they were, right? And he was saying that
Hmm.
like when he was trying to explain to Haruden that he didn't kill his father, or like he wasn't the one killing him with murderous intent at the end of this thing. And when he brought that up, it made me think of like, okay, well, does he mean to reflect on the forest and the third world around them, as in like look at its landscape, look at the way that it has been changed and shaped, and maybe thinking about there was a power that was used in order to shape the landscape in the way that it is, right? Or to cause certain things to be down there. That's something that came to my mind when
Well,
that came up.
Well, just real quick, because I don't know. I'm just looking at the translation on like Manga Freak, and
Mm.
who knows if this is accurate. But the way that they've translated is like you can't even see the forest for the trees, right? So basically,
Mm.
like you can't see the bigger picture of like really what's going on. You're getting kind of caught up in like the small things,
Mm.
which is interesting. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
we got to wrap it up there. We gotta get to the next one. That's
Mhm.
little production secret. But yeah, no, this has been fun.
Hilarious.
Obviously, it's Anime Parlay. We've kept this one relatively short, just quick and dirty chapter review. And when I say quick, 25 minutes and counting. So it is what it is. Thanks for listening. It's your boy Killicam signing off. Who's up?
Walden,
Later, y'all.
peace and blessings.
Okay.
Guys, catch
All
you.
right. See you
Peace.
guys in a bit. Let's do it.
Yeah.